Hello, friends. Hi, everybody. Hello, hello. Yeah, that's working. um, I am Leighellen, and this is Mama Leighellen's Book Nook. This is really bright. Thank you for joining me today. I am coming on here because it is Monday, and every Tuesday I do a pub day video to share the books that are out, and I didn't last week. And so before we start with another week, I figured I would get these done. And I have this big, beautiful stack of books that all came out last week, and I have read them all. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So thanks for joining me. First up is the British Booksellers. This is from Kristy Cambron. And actually, if you want to head to my Instagram page, I did an Instagram live with her, and she's darling. And we talked about this book. This is historical fiction. It is dual timeline, and it is set in 1940, and it follows this dual rival bookstore sellers that they were friends when they were younger and had a falling out. And so the dual timeline goes back and forth between, their younger years when they were friends. So you kind of get the backstory, and then the current story, which has them, rival booksellers. And then it's also set during the Blitz. And what I found really interesting was I just assumed there was, the Blitz, which everyone kind of knows about. And this is set during a different Blitz that I think most people know about, and it is the Coventry Blitz. It happened in November of 1940. And so Kristy, if you go watch that video, it's really great because she explains kind of the history and why she was so captivated by it and what she learned in her research. So this book is set during that kind of traumatic time. And so these rival people come together and decide, we need to help our town and our village. And so it is a great story of, perseverance in wartime and how people coming together. It's a very hope-filled tragedy. So you will want to pick this one up. And go watch that video. It's on my Instagram. It's an Instagram live. It's probably like 45 minutes, but it's really great to kind of hear from her. The next one that came out last week was The Chateau. This is actually, this came out in paperback. So this is a book that I read like in 2023. So I can't tell you a ton about it because I don't remember a ton because it was like a year ago. But I know it was a thriller. And I did the audio back when I listened to it. It's like a mix of historical fiction and thriller, which is always fun. I love historical fiction. So 4 friends come together at this chateau for a big celebratory, big number birthday, and stuff starts to happen. There's somebody that's like putting their content on Instagram. The matron of the chateau ends up dead, and it's a mystery thriller, like locked room. So I did the audio. I recommend the audio because it has, French content and language. And so you get those accents, and then you hear how things should properly be pronounced. So very fun thriller. So that came out. The next one is my all-time favorite, The Outlaw of Noble Salt. The Outlaw of Noble Salt, Amy Harmon. This is actually our Book Friends Book Club pick for April. So if you go to my Instagram or go to their Instagram, Book Friends Book Club, this is the pick. And Amy is going to join us at the end of the month. The chat is actually going to be May 5th. So if you want to join us with this book and then join us to discuss it with her, let me know in the comments. She is fabulous. And this is another one of her books that is historical fiction based on a real person, but then she takes her own history infused into it and story and creates a whole new thing. So it's beautiful. It's about Butch Cassidy. So in this, he's called Noble Salt because he leaves, you remember, maybe you don't remember, but in his real history, he left America. And so this is like during that 7 years that he was gone, and imagines what he did. And in this story, he ends up meeting an opera singer, and she hires him to be her bodyguard when she comes back to America on a tour. And so you have these 2 people that are kind of both broken. She's a single mom and has had kind of a rough upbringing and just been used by a lot of people with her talents. And then he is an outlaw who is literally on the run and pretending to be someone else so that he doesn't go to jail for his trials and all the things he did in America. And when they come back, obviously he's now he's an outlaw, he's coming back into town, so there's, stress with that. They're getting to know each other, and it's just it's classic Amy Harmon. If you've ever read her, she is very good at immersing you in the story, and her themes are a lot of times of redemption and character growth and people coming together and romance. It's a fabulous story. So I loved it so much I made a shirt for it. This is a quote from from the book. You can get shirts that I've made and bookmarks on my Etsy store, so check that out. But this, I loved it. Historical fiction romance. You will want to join us. So I also did an Instagram live with her as well. So that is still on my Instagram page. So if you head to that, Momma Leighellen's Book Nook, you can watch that. I think it's a saved highlight up at the top. She's always a joy to come on. Next up is another author that I'm actually talking to tomorrow. So tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Tuesday, the 16th. If you join me tomorrow at 2:00, I will be chatting with Jaime about this book. Jaime is an awesome writer of like what I would call historical mysteries. I think they're listed as like thrillers, but they're very kind of gothic. She does this great like creepy vibe in all of her books. And a lot of times she does dual timelines, which I always enjoy. There's usually like the past and the present, and there's usually a mystery involved. So this one is similar like that. You have like a touch of ghost story she kind of weaves in there. So this is another one that is a dual timeline set in 1910 and then the present day. It's about this house and its inhabitants. So two different murders happen at two different timelines, and she always has a faith element in there. And so this one is really kind of dark, and so it's kind of the themes of having faith and hope in times of darkness. And so there's also in this one really strong anxiety and mental health rep, which I always appreciate. So if you want to join me tomorrow, we'll be chatting about this on Instagram. I'm on YouTube right now. This is on Instagram tomorrow. I'll bounce back between both places. It's all good. Okay, the other one that came out last week that I read and really enjoyed is this Fellowship of Puzzlemakers. If you are a puzzle person, you will enjoy this. So I am a nerd, and I grew up having a grandma who always did like crossword puzzles and cross sticks and cryptics and word searches. She'd have these like puzzle books by her chair, and anytime I would go visit her, I loved to go through them and do all the puzzles. So if you're a puzzle maker, you will love this, because within this story, like all through it, there are puzzles that are part of the book, but they're also fun to figure out yourself. So, and I think just the puzzle people will appreciate the storyline. So you have this man who has been adopted by a woman and an older lady, and she is the head of this like puzzle solving group. And when she dies, he's getting her funeral together, and he brings all these people together, and you kind of have this dual timeline, him growing up and then him now. So it's coming of age. It's very much a story of found family, and there's a little mystery involved because after she dies, she leaves him a mystery of his parentage, like where did he come from and how did she end up with him. And so there's puzzles and friend groups, and it's just very, very heartwarming. So I think you guys will enjoy that one. It was really fun. Bless Your Heart, I have not read yet. This came out last week, but it was recommended by some friends of mine that thought I would enjoy it. So it sounds like, so it's Texas and vampires. Why not, right? And it sounds like it's kind of campy. You've got these sisters who own a funeral home, and as they are prepping a body and getting ready to host this funeral, the body comes back to life and starts wreaking havoc on this town. And so there's like a mystery. It's kind of like quirky, light horror, and it's been described as being like Finley Donovan, but with vampires. So if you like Finley Donovan, you should like this one. I always love multi-generational family dramas, so I think the story of the sisters is going to be fun, and then the vampire element just adds a little extra. So bless your heart. Next up is Daughter of Mine. Megan Miranda is known for her small town thrillers. This is another one that is like classic Megan Miranda. You've got small town, you've got family drama, and then you have this mystery that's unsolved in the past that comes to light again. And so that is exactly what this is. You've got this woman whose father dies. She has to go back to her small town for the funeral, finds out that he's left her everything, but she has two brothers and they get nothing. And so there's like, oh gosh, how's this going to go down? The way that this is told is what makes the story brilliant, because a lot of stories have, oh, there went the books. A lot of stories have dual timelines or dual narratives. And this, the way that it's told, it's for point of view, but it's told like in chunks. So like the father tells the story and then she tells the story and then the mother tells the story and then the brothers tell the story. And so as it goes, you're like, you learn more as the story unfolds. And so by the end, you're like, what? So it's great. It's great mystery, great tension building, and just classic Megan Miranda. So if you enjoy her books, you will enjoy this one. And now I'm out of order because I dropped a book. What came next? Leigh Bardugo. Oh, I do want to share this one with you. The one that I sadly dropped on the floor. Because they sent me the coolest box of goodies. So let me go grab it. They sent this big old box of stuff and it smells so good. They sent candles and they sent soap and they sent this bookmark. Like, how dope is that? So Leigh Bardugo, I love her. So I kind of knew that I was going to love this one. But she is the author of the Grishaverse. So if you've read any of those books, you kind of know her writing. Now, this is different because this is more, I call this historical fiction. This felt like a classic historical fiction book, like old school historical fiction, like Philippa Gregory. That's what it felt like. So this story is set in like during the Spanish Inquisition times. It's historical romance. And you've got this girl who's a scullery maid. So she's a servant and she has these like abilities, kind of magic, where they call it like house magic. So it's not like crazy stuff, but she will like, bread is burnt and she'll say a little prayer over it and then it's not burnt anymore. The mistress like rips a dress and she like says something, sings a song over it, and then the seams are fixed. So she gets found as having these powers. But so it's during the Spanish Inquisition. So at that time, you could be deemed either holy, right? Like, I've got these amazing powers and they're from God. Thank you, Lord. And everyone is like, you're amazing and holy. Or you could be deemed a witch and then like burned. So depending on how the powers that be, and again, back then, remember, they would like switch back and forth between like, oh, we're Catholic, oh, we're Protestant, oh, what are we now? And then all the politics would change based off that. So this really does a great job of harnessing that kind of era where, at any given time, you could be on the wrong side of politics. And then on top of it, if you're a woman, like she's a woman, you have even less power. Oh, now you're a servant, you have even less power. So it just really looks at all the layers that you would kind of get stuck in just based in this time period. She ends up being asked to champion this test that this man, how can I explain this? So there is a man who wants to get in the good graces of the king. He used to be his secretary. He's not anymore. So he comes up with this contest and he has all these people enter. So he brings her in to be in the contest because he thinks she's going to win. And then if she wins, then he believes that he will be favored by the king and get his job back. So it's really all about just him. It's not even about her, but the book focuses on her because at the end of the day, she's the one that has the powers. And what does that mean? And so it's a very classic tale of, someone lowly who has aspirations and then has a talent and then grows. And then what does that look like? And what happens when you have maybe, aspirations beyond your limits? And it's so cool because it also looks at back then, if you were Jewish, that was another thing that you would be burned for or jailed for, murdered for. So you'd have to hide that. Well, so she has Jewish descendants, and then she also has magic. So there's like two ways that she's supposed to hide. But now she's in the middle of this big contest and is displaying her powers, and so she has to do it in a way that she like also pretends that it's like holy and she's got all this goodness from the Lord. So it's just really well done. The person that like trains her has some background to. Um, I won't tell you any of that because I don't want to spoil it. I feel like I already said a lot, but I loved it. Like I felt like if you like Philippa Gregory books, you will love this book. It has that classic feel of history and just the drama and tensions of the day as she is trying to figure out how to like use this situation to her best advantage, but also knowing it's probably not going to end well. So that is The Familiar. It was fabulous. So thank you, Flatiron Books, for that amazing package and my dope bookmark and all the yummy goodies. I highly recommend that. It was 5 stars. But just do know that like if you are going into it thinking it's going to be like all magic like the Greshaverse, it's not like that. So it felt more historical fiction to me. Another book that came out last week is The Limits. Nell Freudenberger. She is awesome. This book kind of snuck up on me, to be honest, because it's like a COVID book, but not a pandemic book, if that makes sense. So it takes place during the pandemic. You have this mom who has a daughter. She sends her daughter off to be with her dad for the summer, who lives in New York City. So now the daughter's in New York City. You know what happened then. And then the daughter goes to live with her father. The father is gone working all the time, so she spends most of her time with her stepmom. The stepmom is a school teacher, so then, of course, when COVID happens, she's home because everything was online. And then, so it's just kind of that, like, cramped, ominous type of a book where, you've got just this bad situation of COVID happening, and then now everyone's stuck home, and now you're in this strange place, and now you've got this strange, stepmom, and then not that she's strange, but it's just strange situation. And then so she ends up befriending another girl from her stepmom's school, and then that's where stuff goes wrong. So it is a really felt, literary fiction look at just how life can sometimes be overwhelming and a heart-wrenching look at like family, class, and uncertain times. So this was it didn't start off fast-paced. It started off slow, but to be honest, I love books like this that kind of build and you feel it, the tension's coming and you're like, oh no, this is kind of a hot mess. And just like a telling book of our time. So The Limits, I really enjoyed that one. The next one, this one surprised me. I'm not gonna lie. A Better World. I don't know what I was thinking. So I thought by the look, I guess I thought it was gonna be literary fiction, maybe even historical fiction. And then I went into this blind, just so you know. So I didn't know what it was about. So if you look it up, you might know more than me. It's classified as a thriller, but after reading it, I would say it's more dystopian fiction because it's kind of messed up. So this book is crazy. You've got this family. It's not post apocalyptic, but like post like climate crisis. So you've got this climate crisis that happens, and there's this like everything's a mess in the world, right? But then there's these like little bubbles of like safety. And so in this book, there's this like town that you have to get invited into that is like this protective bubble that has, no crime, and it has good jobs still, and it still has food. So the dad in this book gets a job there. And so they decide, okay, like it sounds pretty good. Let's go move there. So they move there, and then stuff gets weird. So it is very like, it's not just dystopian, it's almost like cult-like, because in this town, like to be in the town, they get hazed. So right off the bat, they're like, this family's getting horribly hazed. And there's all these like weird tests that they have to pass. And then they've got weird rules and like festivals. It's very cultish. So I really liked it. It was fast paced. It's kind of bizarre. The ending goes like a little off the rails, a little crazy pants, but it always kind of does in these kind of books, I feel like. But I think it would be really cool as a as like a movie, to be honest. So it had that feel to it as you're going along that you could just like picture it in your head. So a very cool, creepy, culty kind of environmental disaster, post-apocalyptic wacko world book. So yeah, I didn't get what I expected, but it was very entertaining. And finally, the last book I want to talk about is The Garden. So the coolest cover. This is another book that I don't think I knew what I was getting into. I think I thought it was historical fiction. And I would say I would call this feminist fiction. So, and also kind of wild, weird, maybe even, yeah, magical realism almost. So, in this book, also all the trigger warnings. I want to warn you ahead of time. I'm about to talk about stuff that might trigger you. So, if fertility issues and miscarriages are a trigger for you, you're not going to want to read this because that's what this whole book is about. So, and it kind of crosses the line into horror, but like bodily horror. How can I explain it? Like horror that like you can imagine. Like it's like when life is horrible, like that kind of horror. Not like ghosts and goblins, but like real. You can imagine this happening because we have experimented on people and done horrible things to people throughout generations. So in the name of science, and that's essentially what happens. So you have this woman who's had a bunch of miscarriages, and she decides to enter this experimental program, and it's at this like resort facility. So she goes to this facility where she's now property of these two doctors, and they start experimenting on her in the name of how to, make the perfect baby and help her get pregnant. And she endures a lot. And that's, I mean, if you or anyone has ever gone through IVF, like that is brutal, and it can be wonderful and people do have babies, but it's like so emotionally and physically awful. So imagine that times 100. And that's what you have in this book where they're just trying all these things. Um, Anyways, she ends up trying to befriend a couple of people in this institution. She finds this magical garden, and then that's where it gets kind of wacky because she starts thinking like, can she use some of these plants and herbs and flowers to do something different to help her? And then she starts noticing that like things are dying when things are born. So does that have something to do with it? So um it's a very powerful, kind of odd book because the author really does dive into some really hot topics. And it looks at, the ethics of the fertility market and the balance of life and death, and then, the pressures of motherhood. And, because people do go through great extremes sometimes to ensure that they can have a baby. And so it looks at that. And then you add this magical element, and then you add kind of the horror of experiments. And then there's the setting of this felt kind of dark and ominous. So really interesting read, but I would definitely say you have to be someone who enjoys feminist fiction. And then the writing in this kind of is, I would say the writing felt exploratory versus like having a set start destination. She kind of goes into some stuff sometimes, and maybe there was a little extra backstory that I didn't always need, but a really unique novel. So friends, that was Pub Day, April 9th, which is last week. So I promise tomorrow we will do this again with the books from April 16th. But now at least I'm back on track. And then I have a massive stack of book mail to do next. But I'm going to stop this video so that we can finish Pub Day and start with book mail. So I'll see you in like 5 minutes to do the same thing for book mail. And as always, thanks for joining me. Links below for all these books, and link to our Book Friends book club if you want to join to chat about Amy Harmon's Outlaw and Noble Salt. And you can pick up a shirt or a bookmark at my Etsy shop. All right. Thanks, friends. Thanks for hanging out.